p.m. and we'll call this work session to order. We've got Craig Hansen is here, and Neil's coming in the door, and we have technical difficulties there. A little bit.
We have no restrooms.
No restrooms.
No. If you pay.
$10 out the back door.
Len's got a coffee can out there?
Yep.
Yeah, we got
It's taking change.
You just paid your water bill, it'll be all right.
They never got rid of the old logos.
Yeah.
We were talking about minibus today.
We were. That would be really chilly. At 14 below.
We'll rinse my bath.
Yeah.
Like a space heater.
We can hit item B while Craig is getting ready there. Just pay us no mind, and we'll move on to the leadership retreat.
No, we don't have it. I just was wondering if you wanted to have one or not. Your last one was in 2015. You haven't been interested in having one, so I just wanted to put it on here for 2019 to see if you're interested or not.
Personally, I think a work session works just as good. Unless somebody wants to get away up to the Furnace Ministries again.
That's where I got last thing. It's fine with me either way. I just wanted to just verify you guys are good with working sessions.
I'd rather do a working session because your leadership's gonna be like a day, right?
Like 2 days. Sorry. Day and a half.
8 to 5, 2 days.
2 days. Yeah, it was 2 days. Len's in favor of work sessions.
I think we should have a working session from like now until like 4 this morning and call it a day.
Paul left.
I gotta use the restroom.
Never do.
And not at your shop either.
Anybody else?
Just want to say club.
I think I'd rather see one next year. Next year, there's no new, council members.
2020?
Yeah.
Were you on for the last one? Were you on it?
It was okay. I'm not sure that we got our money's worth from the facilitator. I don't know.
Well, I mean,
The other facilitator that that replied is now the League of Minnesota Cities president.
Right,
So,
I mean, I guess the question is like, you guys came up with goals, and how many of the goals have we accomplished? You know, I mean, isn't that part of the process of setting new goals? So there's a lot of things crossed off on here.
Did it work?
Yeah, it
Yes.
worked. Yeah, it worked. But, things pop up all the time anyway. You can have the greatest set of goals, but they're always seem to be things that, they're evolving.
Would it be better off having an extra working session if we needed to?
That's kind of my feeling. But, and maybe look at having one next year, like the other side.
In a way, I'd like to have one and be away so
Yeah.
we could be more social at night. This type of thing.
Finally, an open meeting one. Yeah. Yes, it is.
You know, talk business. We can become friends.
You go to bed at 7 o'clock and watch TV.
Okay. Well, we're over our 4 minutes and 45 seconds, so we'll put it on the back burner, look at doing one for next week,
gotcha.
and schedule another extra work session this year. And Greg's still working, so.
The other item, Your Honor, that I put on your agenda is since the township board and the school board have so many new members, I thought it would be a good thing for all three groups to get together with the city and maybe go over just what each entity's working on, and maybe just introduce each other, get some face time if nothing else. So I did pick some dates there. Did I send you, Jim, the response from Don East? And I think the school was open in all of those dates. Oh, and Don East was putting it on tonight's agenda. But it'd be just kind of like this, just a working session.
30th works for me. Other than that, I have to make some other adjustments. And, you know, we used to do an annual city evening meeting with all of our boards and committees and invited, you know, most of the township. And too, would that be something similar to that?
I was just kind of looking at them, everybody's saying what we're working on this year to see if we could collaborate on anything, because like last year, we were fighting for the same dollars for that playground equipment. There was no communications, and it's still tough communications with this go round, and I went over there and met with them, and that was like pulling teeth to get any answers. So I just thought it would be good to have some time so everybody knows what everybody's working on, and make some connections if there's anything we can collaborate on. Like when we were meeting with Matt Bullard, we talked about they want to rip up the tar on John Janata Road, and I suggested working with the contractor that we get, because they'll be pulling up the bituminous there anyway. Why not just do that quick? It could probably save them money. So I'm just thinking, maybe just talk about what projects each entity has they're working on or looking at, and how soon we can annex the township. Just kidding.
Well, it's, I guess, worth a try. I know that the school is trying to organize that, what they call it, think tank, where they're working with the foundation for kind of a community visioning type thing.
Yeah. the
More
people
school
do
based,
that,
but
yeah.
yeah. I don't know if that would be running into bumping heads with that.
Well, that seems like that's a little bit different deal. If you
Yeah.
have some facilitator running that, I don't
Yeah.
know that that would give you time for everybody to talk amongst yourselves.
Yeah, just more or less talk amongst ourselves to see. You know, we have the hospital doing a big expansion, and all the street projects, school, doing stuff. The township has almost a totally complete board.
Like anything else, we set a date and see what happens.
We'll meet and greet.
So besides Jeff, is there anybody that could meet on any of those days?
Any of those dates work?
Same.
Pick one and go with it. All right. Set, Craig?
Yeah, I think I can start there. I'm just having a little trouble getting the mouse
Oh.
system to work here.
Did we pick a date or not?
Do any of those work for you, Neil? Do they all work for
Uh, 9 and 16, probably not.
you? Okay,
The other 3 would be fine.
okay.
I mean, I could make most anything work, but just, we had Leach on the 9th.
Okay.
Glenn, how about you?
I have no idea.
I just put them down, they all
Yeah,
work for
because we
you.
got, they got, you know, a bunch of other ones to take into consideration too, the whole town board, and you know, 7 on the school board. Yep. See, your mouse is moving.
Yeah, this is different. I can't get the control.
Oh.
I probably own mouse here too, but I can't get the move the,
Oh,
it's not responding well, the keypad here. That's probably. That's right. Good evening, everyone. I'm Craig Hansen, from, live up in by St. Cloud, so I'm a developer attorney, and I've been primarily focusing on developing projects for the last number of years. So I'll give you a little background while I'm here. I've been meeting with a couple people, residents from your community, Leo Lewis and Steve Peterson, for the last year or so. He's been talking about wanting to get some developers in town and do some development in the area. And so I've known him for a number of years. And so he's, had me in town a couple different times over last summer and the year before to kind of look at potential projects that could be done in the town. And I'm right now focusing on senior living facilities. And I've got a development group that I'm working with, and then a private equity funding source that I've been working on putting together. And so we've done some preliminary review of the area, and I looked at some other, another developer, I think that it was Acumen or another senior living facility. Our manager looked at this a few years ago, and I think for them, it wasn't a large enough community because they want to do 150, much larger facilities or 100, 200 unit facilities. And obviously, most communities, it's tough to have a demand that big. However, our group is focusing on some of the outstate communities that 70 to 100 unit facilities, which fit a good market and a good demand in areas like this. So, we met 2-3 weeks ago with a small group of some of you and a couple other community members to give some background on what we were thinking, based upon the information I was provided by Leo and other people. I know that the community's long time wanted to. Seems like there's some members that want to do some redevelopment downtown, and so we've taken a look at a couple of the areas down there, and there is certainly some interest on our part to want to explore that further, and we've, based upon the initial demand studies that we've gotten from the other developers done, then we had our management company. We work with Walker Methodist out of the cities. They're a large nonprofit that manages these facilities. They've said they would, at the 1,000-foot view, they said, they would like to help with us and become potentially manage it, and they see there's demand here as well. So, unfortunately, I'm not getting the screen to work, but what I wanted to talk about are first, Renee, how would you like? What information have they been kind of told in the past, and what?
The only thing I've mentioned is just the senior living thing with Leo, and then Alicia and Len were at the meeting. So more than that, I would kind of go over where you're planning at, what area downtown. And
Okay. Yeah. So
what you're looking at from us.
I wish is there a big map?
Are we basically talking the same area we were before?
Same area. If you want to explain kind of what,
Okay,
yeah.
so it's from Corner Drug down to the bank, and then all the way across the alley, Kate Payne, and then Kay's building. Everybody got a concept from that? This is what they want to take out.
What we need roughly is about a footprint of about 60,000 square feet. So, if you look at that, 200 by 300 foot area. That's about what we need, because we're going to do about a 60,000 square foot building. If we did 3 stories, that would be 20,000 in each floor of a footprint, plus then plus park, and obviously, so that's 20,000 square feet plus parking sidewalks and common area, any green space and stuff like that. So we need the minimum, depending on how much impervious surface you want, need about 60,000 square feet, which would be that 200 by 300 foot facility, or footprint. Well, maybe let me step back. So part of the reason why Leo and other people have seemed to want to do a redevelopment of some sort. One, especially in places like towns in outstate Minnesota, there's a lot of the investment money and stuff is going to the bigger cities, so there isn't as much new development going on in the smaller towns. So this could act as a catalyst, or a development of some sort would act as a catalyst for future development, bring more employees in, and then that just kind of steamrolls itself going forward, help other businesses and other activities that go on in the town. Otherwise, beyond that, it creates, doing something like this in the housing sector. A lot of towns have big issues on affordable housing. Well, this would create housing for the area, so it allow people that were in other homes or either their own home or another apartment or someplace else to move out of that, allow that home to come on the market for either a new entrant to the market or somebody that's in a rental situation. So it'll net positive to bring more people into the community. So that's another benefit. And I understand that there's a fair amount of need for kind of affordable housing, because new construction, I mean, it costs the same to build a house here as it does in the metro, except for some land cost. I mean, a little bit of labor difference, but there's still the lumber and materials and all that are still the same. So, new construction in St. Cloud, even a starter home is going at, it's over $200,000. So it's, I'm sure, not much different here than that too. And that's for a new family coming in, that's not that affordable. So this would, new housing in the area, such as this, it opens up the existing housing stock for that more affordable housing. So. So that's generally why towns and cities like to do and participate in sort of development and redevelopment of certain areas of their town that they think need it. So our project is a continuum of care senior living facility. So what continuum of care means is we try to have options for pure independent, people that need some assistance or full assistance, and then higher acuity such as memory care or other people that need a lot of assistance. So what a facility like ours does allows people this, what they call age in place. So you can come in, and once you're in there, you could literally stay there as long as you wanted to, because it would have nearly all the services and features you would need, until you need a lot of hospital type of care. But other than that, you can stay in and stay within that same room for that matter the rest of their life, as long as they wanted to stay or could stay in outside of a hospital. So so we envision having about 18 memory care, 16 up to 16 memory care, higher acuity sort of units. That could be a potentially locked unit itself. So for security purposes and the health and safety of the residents, that it has higher monitoring, full-time nursing staff, and it complies with all the state regulations and stuff as far as staff per resident and so forth. Then you would have the rest would be kind of flex room areas, so they could be independent / assisted. So people can come in there and just have a regular apartment, and then they can, and as they choose or as they need, they can add on services. And literally they get age in place. They can stay in that room until they would potentially need the memory care or the higher acuity unit, where they could just be transferred over there if they so chose to stay. Any questions?
How many was the regular ones? You got 16 to 18 units of memory care?
Yeah, so then if we did, I mean, it really depends. It's hard. I'd like to get up 70 units out of it, so the rest would be in
70
total units. I mean, get much lower than that if it's a standalone facility without attaching it the hospital or one of the other facilities around here. The staffing ratios, the cost of staff, and if we need we'd need a kitchen here, so you have to average out the cost of the kitchen and the common areas. And so you need a certain amount of rooms to average that out, otherwise it just doesn't make financial sense, because those are fixed costs. You need your kitchens for 60 unit buildings, the same as cost as 120 unit, pretty much. So, and then you're gonna have some other common areas like a salon, potentially, a room space, flex room space. You're gonna have a gym in there, probably. You're gonna have, a common area where could be a theater, and that sort of thing, and maybe a small library and that sort of stuff. So those are all costs that are, they don't create any revenue, so you need to average the development cost out over a number of units to make that work. So 60 is getting a little low, 70 can make sense depending on the actual mix of the units themselves, because you need the higher acuity, and those services to help buy down the cost of the building itself. So.
I was gonna, you'd read my mind, I was gonna ask if this would be a staffed facility, and you answered that. No, but then it leads into a question of whether or not, would this be private staffing, or would it be in conjunction like with Centricare and what they're doing?
That's a very good question. So part of this, our plan is gonna be highly contingent on the strategy and the future of the hospital in the area. So they've got, they're in a capital not capital campaign, but they're looking at what their capital strategies are system-wide, and it's more particular for Paynesville. And I understand they've slated to redo their nursing home and bring it from 51 to 48, but basically redo the whole thing. And then they've also got some ideas on what to do with their other two facilities. Now, depending on what they do, is going to drive kind of what we do. If they end up doing that nursing home, then also remodeling and adding a memory care unit, that will, and they don't partner with us, then this might be almost just a pure residential without services, and maybe this unit could contract Centricare for some of those outside assisted services, because you can only, because you need enough people utilizing those services in the higher acuity to help buy down the cost of everything else. Otherwise, it's just purely a housing building, just like this other market rate apartment that went in town. I mean, that's the other option. Depending on what the hospital does, we would maybe have to switch, if it's feasible, to purely a apartment building here that could be for seniors, and then contract with the hospital for some of those services, or have some on staff but offset with that. It really do, because the economics of these things really are highly dependent upon the staff, being able to get the staff. So depending on what the hospital does, it might be in competition for the same people. The needs of the residents, because if they don't have that need, you get staff sitting there not paying them and not providing services, and that's certainly not, it doesn't make the project profitable or even viable for that matter. So, regardless of what the land costs or any of those other things go. Any other questions?
Do you have any data, if it were a senior living facility,
Mm-hmm.
the economic impact to the rest of downtown would be, maybe just from the people who live there?
Yeah, I mean, so it really depends on what additional ancillary things. So part of the discussion we've had is part of the building could have other suites available for other tenants to go into, just maybe instead of having a salon inside the building, because a lot of these new facilities create a salon, a small room where there's a couple hairdresser sets where the local beautician might come in and rent that space for a few hours a week, or just come in and that's provided as a benefit for the residents. Or maybe we put that as more of it's an outside door, so local beautician could rent a spot there, and then residents who are residents there can use it, but it's also open to the public. Also, the one thing we did in Cambridge, and now we're doing in another facility, we're doing in Rush City, is expanding the kitchen, the restaurant, to be larger than it needs to be for the facility itself, but have it as a restaurant for the city, so to speak. Put the options for another option for the residents in the community to utilize. And so, it'd be credit card, all the normal stuff, just a sit-down restaurant, and they can order whatever comes on. There's a menu, just like any resident can, but they just pay cash or credit card and so forth. So, and that would be, have their own door and access, just outside door, yeah.
Okay. But these residents wouldn't probably build up or visit any of the local businesses that are already here.
Because I couldn't tell you, but generally speaking, retirement age people aren't they're not the most, they don't frequent shopping as much as people with kids and stuff like that. So I mean, if they're local people that are moving in here, that are from the area, are they going to utilize those same downtown people more so than they otherwise would when they lived in a house down the street? That I don't know. There'll be some ancillary family and friends that come visit them, but it's not, I don't know that that's going to be a ton of extra. I think it'll drive some more foot traffic, but is it, how much? That I couldn't tell.
If there weren't a beauty salon, we have 3 downtown.
And then there's only so much space we can have as other things, so one of the things would, and that's that came up last time is, and I just use it because it's an easy one, but beauty salon, say we got 4 extra flex rooms sort of thing. Instead of having a beauty salon, we're just going to have, we won't have that in here because that facility might not be big enough. And in that case, you just have, a little bit bigger library or the gym that's open to the public or something like that. Any other questions? So part of it, what we are been working with and staying in good contact with Centricare to see what their plans are, because that's really has a big impact on what we can do and would do. One, we don't want to be in competition with them, because that's not going to, we'll lose if we're competing against us. They can feed their own system a little easier than we can. But we also want to hopefully work more in partnership with them, because I know they've got certain things they want to do for the community, and they've only got so many dollars, but if we can, bring those dollars together or partner together to do the same things that they wanted to get done, but we can do it in our facility, or we don't do things we want and they just do it in theirs, that's certainly an option. And so they're having their, I believe March and April is when they're going to make some real decisions about what their direction is in their capital expenditures in Painesville, and I think that'll drive ultimately what we're able to do here, whether it's a full continuum care with a higher acuity and memory care, or is it some scaled down version, or is it just a pure independent apartment living and with no services, any services would be just hired outside of that. So, because then if you did something like that, you wouldn't necessarily need a kitchen, which a kitchen is something like this, between the infrastructure, and the room and everything else, you're talking almost $1 million of the whole project would be, the kitchen area with, and then you have the kitchen staff to pay for as an ongoing expense.
Does bring up one other question that I had is, talking in large round numbers, how big a project are we looking at here? And then what is your vision of what the, how that, the cost of the project is going to be sustained?
Just say, for simple math, if we did the bare minimum, a 60-unit facility, continuum of care, so it's going to have the kitchen, all those other things, that's roughly going to cost $10, $11 million. I just say all in $11 million, somewhere right around there, and depending on size of the rooms and the other amenities. But just for round numbers, use $10 million. That would be without. I mean, that's the construction, the financing cost, the development cost, paying the builder, and all those other things. If they're just, forget about the land, but that's what that's probably roughly gonna be. So that would, depending on how, so there's many there's many ways that can be financed. One, what we would do is bring in outside investors, so part of our investors, provided it meets their, investment goals and the returns. Marry that with a lender, to take 70%, potentially up to 70% of the project, and then that 30%, or 30 in this case, probably do 35% equity or some sort of other financing partner. Maybe it's the hospital, maybe it's the city, maybe it's the city helping with general obligation bonds that are paid back within 3 or 5 years, or 5 years or something like that. But it's going to be, so capital stack, think of this, just say $6 million debt, 6.5, somewhere right around there, and then between equity of some sort, that $3.5 million of equity. Because given the an outstate and situation, the banks they can go up to 75%, but you also got to remember, you got to set us, part of this project is if it's the continued care, you probably set aside $500,000 or more just in operating reserve to $750. So that'll have to be pure equity into the project by the investors. So did I answer your question from an overall perspective? Yeah. And so the biggest risk on these facilities is the first 3 years. Is once you're building them and the construction cost risk, then it's how fast can you get them to stabilization. And stabilization is 90 to 90% full. And when they're cash flowing and paying their debts and hopefully kicking off some excess money, paying down the debt and kicking off some excess cash flow. That usually takes 3 to 5 years. At that point, if it's purely a private deal, the private group could go ahead and refinance that with a government-backed loan, non-recourse, and put it out like a 30, 35 year, because a normal construction loan is going to be maybe 5 to 7 years, amortized over 20 to 25 years, so that'll help bring down the monthly payment by 20% or so. That would to help make it profitable, or the management company, or the local city management company who's managing it, or outside firm could buy it out at that time as well. So, so the development group we're working with, we've got 3 exit strategies. We'll echo is to develop it, hold it for 3 to 5 years, and that equity group has 3 options. One, they can refinance it like I talked about with some long-term financing. They can go ahead and the management company, Walker Methodist, has expressed interest in being a purchaser. They purchased the one of my partner in Cambridge right away, and they plan on doing that. The one we're just starting now in Rush City, or you find a hedge fund or REIT or something, national company that just buy assisted living facilities. And they're usually your highest bidder, but they're tougher to get outside of a major metropolitan areas. So typically, once construction starts, the construction period will be roughly 1 year. So then 2 years to fill, so that's the 3-year period, and then a couple years after that to figure out what ultimately is going to happen with the facility long term. So what the developer and us and the project would need is really dependent on what the cash flow of this thing can be and what the market rents are in the area. But given what we've done in other areas like we're doing in Pine City, Rush City, Cambridge, and those other communities about this size, what we've had to do to make them work economically is essentially get the land for free, And then in those cases, we've gotten a pay-as-you-go TIF, tax and income refinance. So no new money coming in, just the, no money being loaned from the city, just going ahead and we'll pay our tax bill and then get roughly 90% of that back for a period of 15, 20 years to help defray the some initial costs and so forth, and then help cash flow the project itself.
The Rush City one, Pine City.
Yep.
That are they redevelopment ones also?
So those are not, so that's, this would be, the Rush City, well, Rush City one is, we acquired, the county owned a 20-unit independent senior facility where they sold it to us for essentially 60 cents in it. It helped buy down the cost of the project. That was their, so if you, 20 units, they sold it to us for, just over $1 million. So if we were to build that unit, that 20 unit, that's gonna be somewhere around $3 million. So it depends on how you value that. That was their contribution into that. And then the city gave us additional land. And then when the county and the city then both gave us a TIF for the whole amount, about $1.45 million. And 1.45 million, I think, was the total between the county and the city over a 15-year period.
Is that Washington County?
That is, no, Chisago County.
Chisago,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So, that is how that project was done. So, as far as redevelopment, outside of senior, that's what I was gonna try to show you guys some pictures. I was part of, not as a developer, but as the attorney for the developer. We did a redevelopment in Detroit Lakes. So the hotel and condo right down on Lake Street, I was part of that project.
Right on the corner of.
Exactly,
Oh,
yep,
okay.
yep. So if you know that, that's up and running. It's in Fairfield Inn, so if you want to look that up.
Right across from JK Marine?
Yes, yep. And so, and that's turned out, that was a nice redevelopment. In that case, we got a 24, I don't know how many years TIF, but very similar, but we ripped down a lot of homes and other things to get that done. And then beyond that, we did Platteville, Wisconsin, did a redevelopment for a city. In that case, that was a public-private partnership where we built a city library in conjunction with the hotel. And we used some new market tax credits, which I know Renee's a little familiar with, but whether that's available nowadays is questionable. But that's federal tax credit money that helps defray the cost of some of the project. And so we were able to apply a good part of those credits to apply to the city library. And so the city basically got a new library for less than half price. So that was a good project to work on. And so those are and a couple other smaller redevelopment ones, but that's the ones that have been of noteworthy. Yeah.
We could use the new library, bigger one.
Yeah, I mean, so that's one thing we talked about last time is exploring other areas where there might be a building that's, you can, multi-purpose, or it's a, you build the whole thing at one time and maybe the developer get their costs a little cheaper than what the city has to put out for private bid and so forth. That's another option. So, yeah, but those are all, right now, I think we're very much at the, I would say at the beginning stages. But what we're really looking for is what interest does the city have? Is the downtown redevelopment something that there's some public outcry for and demand and really want? Is that something that your constituents are saying, hey, I want something done here? Or, you know what, is there other places that are better suited for it? And then, so what we're really looking for is the city have an appetite for a downtown redevelopment? Because that's a lot different than a greenfield, clean space like it is by the airport. I mean, those are easy things. A downtown redevelopment is much more difficult, costs more, and it takes longer. So really, and part of this, I know we're kind of having a moving target here because on our end, the hospital has a big role in this, and they don't know what they're doing. So our ultimate strategy and plan will morph to depend on what they ultimately do as well. But that'll, I think, over the next few months, solidify itself, and then we can solidify which direction we're going, so, yeah.
Early on in discussions about this, there was talk that AMPI needed office space to be incorporated into something. I take it that's not being talked about anymore.
We're okay, there's been some discussion of incorporating, if there is a demolition and an acquisition of some of the downtown land, and you'd have some discussion with AMPI to see if they would want some of that, want to participate. We certainly, part of a development building could incorporate office space in there, especially as as a downtown concept, but there hasn't been any direct communication with them, because I understand they're going through some other general obligation bonding and other things as well, and we didn't know that if it was appropriate at this time yet to approach them, so.
Yeah, the previous group that had been kind of toying with that, I think they had gone deeper into looking at something like that with EMPI. Their scope, I think, was a little larger in concept than this. And that was, I think, also tied in with the fact that they were going, more to the north than to the west from the corner.
And just for the sake, from my perspective, I'm not tied to any, it would be, this would be such a large investment of the city. We're not tied to any specific street or group of houses. It would be looking for the city itself to decide what it thought best of the area that needed redeveloping and so forth. So, yeah, because whether it's shift to block this way, that way, it's not going to make much of a difference to the economics of the facility.
There's a segment that says bulldozed down the whole, that whole block. There's a segment that says, the buildings are of historic value. We need to preserve them and maintain the, that downtown retail type thing. And, like you said, what do the people want? It kind of depends on who you talk to and whether or not you're talking money.
Right, no, that's true. And so
everybody wants to do something, but everybody wants to do something different, and when they find out the cost, then the tune changes a little bit.
So, and I know I don't want to take all your guys' time, because this is, I want to keep it closer to an hour, but in general, it sounds like from past people looking at this and what other people looked at, demolition of just say a block, whatever that block is, what was it, $500,000 or more is what the people are throwing up. That's probably a pretty accurate number. I know somebody's going to have.
Sounds low.
That's just the demolition side. That's not. Then you got the acquisition, and so I think. Was it you that looked up? You thought, what was it, 6, 7? The tax value of one block?
Tax value was like 7.25.
That's right, 7.25. So, and you're going to have some people, as these go, they're going to say, well, I'd love to get my tax value. And others, they hear this project coming in, they're going to say, no way, I want double my. So, you never know what, if you get some holdouts and stuff, that they're going to really try to jack the price up. But if it's a downtown development, at a minimum, I think you're talking $1.2 million of money to get it to be a pad-ready site at a minimum. And so, regardless of what block it's going to be on and so forth. So that's the bitter pill to bite if there's a redevelopment project versus going to, out there to the greenfield where, you got.
Would you guys be up for that? If we said, we're not gonna be able to give you the 1.2 million, displace all these people, but we can do something with you over the airport?
It's certainly probably not the first choice, but there's other choices, but potentially, yeah. I'm not necessarily married to the downtown. it would have to depend on the economics, but, yes, so, but part of the reason I came here is I know people want to do redevelopment, so I want to make sure that I'm not, just coming in and sidestepping. with-
No, I know Leo's whole idea was to do the downtown.
Right, but-
My question was, if we can't do the downtown, is it over?
Oh, no, not, certainly, yeah, no, I mean, to be all honest, there's the site, the hospital site right across here. And, that, if they wanted a partner a lot, they've already got the kitchen there. It would need some upgrading and stuff, but there could be something there as well. So there's a couple other sites. So, so the answer is no, it's not a, hey, if we're not coming downtown, no, it's, does that make sense, first of all? And if it doesn't, or there isn't the community demand for that, well, then certainly look at other places, yeah.
Are you suggesting that the end stage of life facility be right next to the funeral home there?
And then just walk out the back door.
One-stop shop.
The Len Gilmore Tunnel?
Drop off grandma and pick her up at the end.
I say that tongue in cheek.
Yeah, so that was,
But, that doesn't solve the problem that we have with downtown, so.
No, I'm just asking a question.
It's quite a huge
They
tract.
own like 6.
The greenhouse has also been
that's been brought
a
up to me as well,
possibility.
yeah.
Leo threw that in my ear one morning.
Oh, that's big enough?
That's in the township, isn't it 3 acres? I
Yes.
think we looked
Well,
at
the
it.
minute it sells, it becomes town.
Well,
Is it contiguous?
3 acres behind
We talked about
it.
that.
It's right.
The old
It's just,
greenhouse.
it's just
And
an
then
odd, it's just an odd, yeah, it's right on.
Right, oh, 23, yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Right on the
One of them.
northwest side of town, right? As you're coming in, east, not west.
And then he talked about Davidson's lot, but I don't think that connects with the greenhouse.
Yep, it does. It goes right up to the back. Isn't it?
No.
Almost positive. It
Comes-
comes over and goes straight up.
Well, I
I
think
think it
the
goes
back of
south.
that goes into the,
Chumps is right there,
chunks.
and then I think it goes this way.
Because it was right behind the,
It's more Chubbs and
It's-
Elfring.
It's Elfring and Chubb that abut it.
yeah.
But
Elfring and the Chubbs that abut the Davidson lot.
you're talking redevelopment, maybe Chumps
Not
would be a
the
good one to redevelop.
No, that's not his apartments, that's his other chunk of land.
That's what I'm talking
Okay, all right, then I'm wrong then.
Yeah, the bear lot.
Yeah, I
It's
thought the bear
more,
lot
it's
was-
mostly right next to
Now you're talking potential brownfield rather than.
Okay, it was bigger
about.
than
Straight
that.
after the township.
I don't think so.
Is there sewer and water connected there? I mean,
So the greenhouse property, no.
But it goes right by.
Goes right by.
Goes right by, okay.
It's just.
Right, is there any, maybe I didn't even ask this question, but I would assume there's plenty of capacity, sewer and water capacity, especially if you've got EMPI here, that the facility like this isn't gonna overtax or require an expansion of anything.
Be around
Capacity
question.
for this, yes, we would have.
Okay.
It's not a problem.
I thought I asked that a while ago, but I was, didn't visit it, yeah. So, I mean, from our perspective, what we're looking for is this something, the downtown redevelopment, something that you want people to explore for us to, and some city staff to explore a little further? At least as a redevelopment, or, and if it is, I think the next step, what I had kind of on my thing is report back in a month or two, just get a better estimate of what a demolition cost might be, and then it sounds like we have an idea of what the tax value is, but I think when you add all that up, it's still gonna be $1.1 million, $1.2 million to $1.4 million, somewhere in there. That would be the cost just to start the process.
And then in a month and a half, you would know what the hospital's plan is.
I would say April,
March.
yeah, so,
What month are we in?
yeah, it's almost March, so, month and a, yeah, so I would guess by 2 months for sure, because they're gonna have that, they've got an application in for, with the state to do their, yeah, to get past the moratorium, so that, they're expected to be end of March, they thought they would have that back by?
First part April.
Yeah, so, so I think from my perspective, you know, the mix or what is possible is gonna be highly dependent on them. And I've got a meeting with, David Larson, next week, Thursday, and we're gonna talk more in depth on their plans and kinda, what if scenarios, that, you know, so we can further figure out what it is that our plan is. And part of that discussion will be, well, you know, if they want to partner with us, because our dollars can probably go a lot further than theirs on development. I saw that their estimates on their new nursing home are per bed is three times what assisted living facility almost costs, so or at least double per bed with less amenities. So, but they're building a, you know, they got different standards for ventilation and all, and then they've got their builders cost a lot, you know, so many different things. But their construction costs are over double what per unit what ours would be, and then our cost for a senior facility relative to, say, a resident, just a market rate residentially, that one here probably cost them $105,000 a room keep for construction costs besides land. Now it's $115 this year. Ours are, just figure, $160 when you add up the kitchen and everything else, $160,000 for on average. So.
This morning, at our economic development meeting, we talked about this concept, and it was a really good discussion. One of the things came up is, would it be more beneficial to build this concept, to buy houses with that 1.2 million and build this closer to the hospital facility than down here where people have to be transported? That was a really good discussion that we had this morning instead of.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, most of it is housing, and we're not going to be having, we just need to be within a reasonable distance from a hospital. I mean, we're talking only a few blocks right now, so it's not going to make that much, because most of ours are going to be independent and assisted, and we're not going to have that much high. I mean, you got a few high acuity, but most of those are going to be memory care and other sort of dementia-related patients, so they're not going to need the hospitalization services as much. Now, we still want it very close proximity, but there's lots of assisted living facilities that are like this that are, you know, 15, 20 minutes. Or no, there's, you know, you get out in some of the areas, they're a ways away from a hospital. Now, granted, whether it's a couple blocks difference, I mean, I don't know if that's going to make, from my perspective, not that make that much care. But flip side, if we're partnering with the hospital and they're willing to partner with us, and you know, and instead of creating their own facility and sending their patients there, they'd send them here. That added to the benefit of the community and the project. Certainly be willing to look at that. So, yeah. Yeah. So I think, you know, you guys as a community have to decide. You know what I wish, I gotta find that picture. I wanted to show a picture of what, because this will be a big, fairly sized building, you know, 3 stories. So it's going to be a massive building in a town your size, and it'll take up at least a half a block, 3/4 of a block of one solid wall. So, I mean, you bring up a good point. Is that something you want downtown? I mean, granted, we will make it look, won't be like that apartment building out there. It'll have a facade that'll be consistent with a downtown sort of facade, but still one large building. And is that the look you want? And is that, you know, that's certainly something you'll want to wrestle with. And is it better to put it someplace else?
And the only other thing that I had mentioned is that we need to, I know getting a plan from AMPI is difficult, but I hate to see putting $10 million downtown and then they need to expand, and there goes the building. And then we have all these people we have to displace. So I mean, we really need to know what their plans are for the future too, because with that kind of money, we wanna make sure we have it someplace that it's gonna stay for a while.
Good point.
Yep.
Do they have, I mean, are they planning on expanding any? I know there was some expansion, but enough where they,
Yeah, there's another expansion after the one that we're bonding for, there's another one they've got, yeah.
do they
They
have
took
the
out
land?
some big farms and
Do they have the land already for that? They'll have to acquire more land. Okay, gotcha.
they're landlocked.
Yeah, they bought one lot, tore the house down, they got their eyes on a couple others.
Mhm.
But they're limited because that's along the river.
Yep.
Mhm.
The river and the railroad tracks and downtown is their boundaries.
Mhm.
And AMPI and Centricare, two of our biggest entities in the community, we need to take them into consideration.
Yeah.
But I did hear you use the P word, partner, several times, which I appreciate, so.
Yeah, well, I mean, projects like this, they require that.
Mhm.
And it's gotta be good for both sides, and so, you brought up, am I married to downtown? Certainly not. And it's, you know, you guys gotta be proud of whatever happens here, because you're gonna be, have to live here and respond to your constituents and the mid-city people in years to come. You know, was this the best? You know, what is best for is it downtown redevelopment? Is that where you wanna put your initiatives or other places?
So realistically, we gotta look at the financing and how we could accomplish it. I mean, it seems like we've had a discussion in our last council meeting about kind of where we're at on some financial things, and we gotta figure out how we can do this, or if we can do it. I mean, I think that's really what it comes down to is, can you put numbers together to make this work for the developer? Because you kind of know what they need to make it work, so.
Mhm.
This is a question of they can do it.
Yeah. Is your timetable still next summer?
Yeah, it would not be, obviously, that's the earliest, next spring or summer, but yeah. You know, so if you look at overall timetable, so say March and April, we came back and said, okay, we know generally the cost, and the city said, you guys said, go ahead, explore it further. Well, you're gonna spend the summer, we'll spend the rest of spring finalizing, the mix of what is gonna be done there. Then the summer and fall are gonna have to be spent addressing the land, what parcels are gonna be, acquiring the land, negotiating those things. And then there's a long displacement period. So that would take summer, fall, winter. And then you do the demolition come winter, spring, and then construction could start in the spring, summer of next year. That's probably, if it's a downtown development, that is likely that would be a very quick process to get that all done, because knowing if you have to take out a whole block or a half a block, you're gonna have some holdouts, and you're gonna have people that just, you just have logistical, first holdouts and logistical issues about how to displace people and get them in another location and build out another location for them, or whatever you have to do, so. Yeah.
Any other questions? We need a ladder truck for fire department?
No.
I don't think so. Don't think so?
3 were okay.
3 were okay.
You had three?
That's the cutoff.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
For without the ladder.
Yep, 3-story.
It depends how many you have.
And that's the same as the luxury apartments.
Depends how many apartments and how many you have too.
And the other thing we talked about at the other meetings, I know you guys are going to, reviewing your streets and your infrastructure down there. And so whatever is done, if you do a downtown development, just, make sure that you can incorporate different sort of parking schemes and different, green space and stuff involved in that stuff as well. All right, any other questions for me? Sorry, My screen wasn't working, I'm not very technically advanced, but,
Here, hold on.
so, but if you do want to look at a couple of the other redevelopment projects, take a look at that hotel in Detroit Lakes and then the one in Platteville. The one in Platteville is really a half-owned, we did a clinics involved, a nonprofit clinic, so that was really a public-private partnership deal, so.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Anybody need to go next door for a potty break? Okay.
Now it's River across through.
Yeah, speaking of AMPI, update there.
Just briefly, design is nearing completion there, and it is on your next council agenda to approve the plans and specs and start to advertise for bids. I think it's scheduled to be bid on March 20th. So, and just to reiterate a little bit, this is a phase one, and AMPI is only, well, it's $4 million total project, and they're only gaining 500 pounds of BOD off of this project. Phase two will probably be, I don't know, somewhere in that 4 to 6 million, but they're gonna gain likely 4,000, maybe 6,000 pounds of BOD. So it's gonna more than double the capacity. But obviously, the projects need to be phased, so that's really all I have on the AMPI project.
Okay.
At
well
this
then,
point.
Any questions?
So we're on phase two, time frame, what are we looking at for phase two?
I guess that really depends on AMPI. I mean, it was thrown out there to try and put this all into one package, but they backed off of that. You know, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, it could be 10 years. They have not come out and said when phase two will go. But all they said is, yes, they definitely want it. You know, they wouldn't have done this one if phase two wouldn't be in the back of their heads.
Gotcha.
What is phase two consist?
Phase two is handling biosolids. We're putting in some clarifiers and dealing with the biosolids. And the reason for that, the industrial biosolids are a lot less costly to deal with than the municipal. You know, when you mix it all together, it's all considered municipal.
Oh, okay.
Because basically you're dealing with municipal, it's a vector attractions, and you have to get your pathogens down to a certain level, so you're putting in digesters, etc. With municipal, we can separate it, store it, and haul it out.
So then they're just dealing with milk byproducts.
It's milk byproducts, correct?
It'll be extra labor on your end.
Oh, absolutely, yes. But if we want to keep AMPI viable, obviously you have to, you know, if anybody is familiar with First District down in Litchfield, they've gone through this about 5 times already also.
So from phase one to phase two, are they just gonna get penalized then, because they're gonna be over their BODs?
If they, at some point, it's possibly, I mean, that's really what happened here. I mean, they've been penalized pretty severely the last year or two. You know, and that may force it, or, you know, as soon as they start to handle another, you know, if they bring on another 7,500 head of cattle, obviously they may need it. For a few more large
That could
farms.
take, yeah, that could go real quick.
Yeah.
Okay, item B then?
Again, that is also going to be on your next council agenda for approval of the plans and specs, also to be bid out, or to accept the bids, but take the bids on March 20th. And I think we're looking at a public hearing the first part of May. So to construction to follow very shortly after that.
I'm glad to see you're staying busy, Ron.
No trouble with that.
Public Works Facility?
Well, I guess with the information that the council received with bonding, et cetera. Obviously, I don't wanna see my taxes go up 20 to 30% either.
Yeah.
Just throwing it around with Chuck a little bit, he is looking diligently for any funds, and I know Renee is looking for funds. If it does need to be pushed back, I guess, to make it work for us, I guess I would like authorization for myself and possibly the person that's on call to take our vehicles home. That would really free up a lot of space in the shop. I don't like the idea, but it would work. I mean, just, I know you see a lot of utility companies taking vehicles home. I know Excel, the CenterPoint, et cetera. So it's not a common thing, or it is a common thing, I should say, so.
Chief, you take yours home, don't you?
Would they be outside then, or more likely?
More than likely,
So,
I guess-
want to make sure we've got crossplug here.
yeah,
If that's throughout,
if that's where we go, yes. I'd rather find the money and keep on the schedule we are, but I understand if we can't.
Okay, on parks and equipment.
Ron and I did go meet with, we met with Matt Bullard, but we also met with Dave Barline. And, yeah, it wasn't a very, it was a lot of one-word answers. Not a lot of sharing of information, and you'd think we were asking for secret data or something, but, so he pretty much told us that what's there is there, and that is their 5-year plan, and their 5-year plan was done, and they have a little bit of touch-up work to do with some matting and that, but, and a couple other little amenities to hook on, but what's there is there, and that's it. So we asked if we get a list of what they have, and I don't think he's sent that, and I haven't gotten it. And we also asked the kids what they were interested in. So we asked if we could have what they didn't get, that maybe we could get, and he hasn't sent us that either. So we'll follow up with them, but Ron had park and tree meeting, and we have a subcommittee devised to work on selection of equipment, and Mr. Ryan said we could survey the kids when we have that selection and get some feedback, so.
All right, City Hall security update.
We make Paul stand at the door.
Oh, okay. I do see him in here.
It's a combination, City Hall, Thornton.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't got any further done with that.
Okay. Did you get one of those doorman hats?
I probably got.
We did approve buzzers, didn't we? The-
Yeah, we have to get you some quotes, and neither one of
But
us.
that was approved to go ahead with, I believe.
I'll be honest, that's a time thing. I don't have time, Renee doesn't have time.
I would prefer to get you some quotes so you know exactly how much money that's being spent.
I mean, that's been the hang up, is getting the time to get quotes and get you guys the stuff. So,
Run up the fleet, get some wiring and some push buttons.
Somebody saw security cameras on Facebook Marketplace the other day.
Okay, then.
Electric chairs to floor mats up there.
Okay, 9. How's Jerry doing?
depends on who you ask.
Oh,
As far as K-9 goes, you know, Tom and him have been bonding. Tom's gone down for 2 or 3 obedience sessions. What I get reported back is that at home, the obedience sessions don't work real well. He pretty much eats everything that Tom has. But other than that, by all indications from Steve, he should be a very good dog. His training will start March 11th. Squad is completely outfitted. I do not believe we're waiting on anything. I think everything's in the squad and it's ready to go. And now it's just a matter of time, so. But we do have, we worked with, is it Granite City Vet or something like that? So we were getting all vet services for free through them. So his operation he just had on Valentine's Day was cost-free to us.
Ironic. How'd the donations turn out? Are we still?
We're still taking them.
Still taking them? What was that? You didn't catch that.
That's just as well.
As far as donations, we continue to, you know, bring them in. We haven't looked recently for any grants or anything like that to help offset costs. But Tom is continuing to sell the gift cards, the Quick Trip gift cards, the car washes. We got 82 cents in today from our Quick Trip, their portion of those. However they
are still doing
it.
the gift cards?
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, you can still buy the gift cards and everything else, and then, you know, as we progress, and I think as Tom gets time just sitting in a hotel room here for training, you know, I'll probably task him with trying to figure out some additional fundraisers. We will be working and preparing for the pork chop feed again this year, and so, you know, we sell the occasional T-shirt yet. We still have plenty of those. Hopefully we'll be able, now that he's here, hopefully we'll be able to get it, get them sold more at like Town and Country Days. And then,
Tom and Christian are gonna work and put together a Facebook page for Jerry so people can follow his training and development and successes, and Tom's already got accumulated of videos and things of him with me, so.
Okay. Staffing.
Well, the bookkeeper, lead secretary position closes next Friday. No, this Friday. This Friday, and the police officer position closes the following Friday. And we have, Jennifer and I just counted them today, I think we had 6 secretary ones and 4 police ones that have come in.
one in my office.
Probably not.
So at 5 PD.
And then Bill is going to need some additional staffing for the summer, and Ron has been informed that one of his seasonal people won't be coming back. So he'll have a seasonal, and then we'll also have the lifeguards that we can try to acquire for the summer. So I think that's where we are. I think we were at full staff for 2 months. And the auditors are here right now, so if they call you or contact you for information, they reach out to different people out there and ask them questions. So they had us hopping pretty good today. I think Belinda lost a lot of weight. It was hard to catch her. So, but so far they said they're ahead of schedule than they were last year. And so far they said it's going real well.
Blighted property.
So each of the officers are tasked to take on a quadrant to town prior to the snow flying. Each of them, I believe, identified, they're supposed to identify 5 to kind of get started. I think 18 total were identified and were addressed, and then obviously it snowed. So once spring hits, they will be going back to make sure those properties got cleaned up, and then they will go and start addressing the rest of their quadrants.
I forget the number, I think it might be 369 Hudson. Looks like a used car lot. I counted, I believe it was 12 or 14 cars.
I was just there to actually today.
You gotta drive in the alley to get the full count.
There were actually 7 there today when I was there. So I don't know, I'd have to go back and see. I told my officers to keep their stuff until they cleaned up the property, because if they give it to me, they're gonna forget about it, so.
Is there an ordinance that you have to have everything licensed and tabbed? Right?
Yep. Otherwise, it's a junk vehicle. And that's the other part of the problem is I don't know if that particular property, I know some of those vehicles, especially in the front, are all, I believe they're all licensed and.
And you can tell on the snow that only 2 are moving.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, but unfortunately, our ordinance doesn't deal with the vehicles moving. It deals with them being operable and licensed and insured. So,
And some in the back have, I mean, they're like junkers. Or
And the thing is,
builders or-
yeah, and the thing is, let's say the vehicles in the back are, up on blocks, no wheels, that by our ordinance is gonna be a junk vehicle. Even if it has current registration on it, it's inoperable, it can't drive.
Well, I got a
so-
complaint from a neighbor that didn't want to be paid. And I told him, bring it up.
I will, I know that property, so I'll have a chat with whoever's got that section, make sure that they're taking care of it. Because I know we've dealt with them before, because it actually used to look a lot worse. So,
Glad the lot ain't any bigger.
what's that?
I'm glad the lot ain't any bigger. There's not room to park in that car.
No? One way not having to shovel snow, I guess.
Horrible ground.
Okay, speaking of blighted property, downtown revitalization and redevelopment.
We visited about that this morning at EDAM. All the EDAP members wrote it on their calendars, and they'll be participating on the March 19th.
We're all present.
Yeah.
We're all present.
All who were present.
All who were
Yeah.
present.
There was a couple absent. So what I understand is Greg will be coming back in a couple months to find out what the council would like us to do, and I already checked into bonding on it. Not highly recommended, due to it would come back with an extremely high risk rating because of them being we're not aware of them. We're with AMPI, we've worked with them for over 50 years. And we did the bonding before. They said this would be an extremely high risk bond. So I can see what other money I can find.
Lottery tickets are out of the question, I suppose.
I just had a $500 winner Sunday.
That's.
You're gonna need a lot more
Mhm.
than
We find a lot more of
Good
those.
luck if you get a doorknob.
Yeah.
Yeah, somebody, nobody else would cash it, but we did it
They have to have the cash on
for
hand.
them. They do.
What kind of money have we, from our lot sales and the Quick Trip, and that money's went to general fund or reserves?
Some of it went to pay back, or for EDA to pay back general fund for the construction and the infrastructure. And some went to paying back bonds, and I could get a breakdown for council for the next council meeting. So you can see where that money is.
See where it is. Yeah, I don't know, and just, personal opinion, if you look at a project like this in other areas, it doesn't solve the problem of what to do with downtown. It's just,
Well, it doesn't bring any foot traffic to what's there already to encourage new development.
It would bring a lot of foot traffic, you can't say it wouldn't,
Well,
because
it
everybody's
depends,
there,
it's
is gonna be your 50-year-old pluses, so they're gonna be walking for your coffee, they're gonna walk down to the bar, the shops and so forth.
if
So they're
the,
gonna bring foot
if the
traffic.
style that they do, if they look more towards the, the assisted living and and the memory care units and that, no. But if you start looking at the market rate type things.
If we do that, then we've got a much better.
Then you've got, you look at, people say, oh, we need to go out, we need the theater again, which is not gonna happen because of the shape of the building, but, potentially a small, two-screen theater downtown, a little mini market, a satellite liquor store, those types of things, then that would bring foot traffic. If they're looking at just the, very elder care.
The only thing that bothers me about the whole downtown is everybody who complains about it and says, we need this, the reason we don't have that is 'cause they didn't go. The reason the movie theater is gone is we didn't go. The reason Papa's Pizza is gone and Jimmy's Pizza is because we didn't go. Sorry, it's us. It's all the people
Yeah,
who
I
didn't
know.
go there.
No, it's what is the future of downtown? Is it?
I think the future of downtown is what it is right now. It's service oriented.
Right.
Retail's not gonna make it. Mom and
No.
pop shops can't make it.
Your business that wants traffic is probably gonna build a new Painesville. That's your.
No, this is New Painesville.
No, new
New Painesville. Okay, now call it what it really is.
Without, and that's probably,
Oh, where shop is closing down?
But really, retail's not coming back. Not in downtown Painesville. Payless Shoes just shut out 21 of those stores. They can't make it.
We need an Amazon.
New York City's not
I was
getting
gonna
one.
say, New York's not putting their plant up, maybe they've
Yeah.
got space.
shopping.
Put their headquarters.
So I guess the question is what do you want the downtown to be?
And I think that's why you guys are gonna do the process of planning for downtown, figuring out what you want it to be.
And then what can we do to do with that?
I mean, a lot of people look at New London and their stores come and go also. They aren't, I was there last week and I think there's 2 for sale. So,
And their stores employ very few people and.
well,
They're all mom and pops.
they're
They're
tourist
mom and pop,
traps,
yeah.
is what I call
Which
them.
basically is downtown retail
Yeah.
now anyway.
But I mean, what can the city do to even, you can't force people to come in and move in and redo one of these buildings. So we're taking the brunt of what everybody thinks should be done, but we have really no control of it. The only control we have is when somebody comes in and says, I want to buy this building, and they go to EDAP and we fund them. That's all you got.
Or the type of business that they want. That's,
I mean, for the city to go knock those buildings down, you're gonna take a huge hit in property taxes. Because they're worth more money with those buildings on them in whatever shape they're in than they are with just the land. So you're gonna take that loss and then it's gonna be a while before you gain that back if they don't do what they like a TIF, so, it could be
You're
10,
talking 20 years.
15, yeah, before you get any tax dollars back.
So,
Then when you
everything
got
else
20 years,
is-
how many places are gonna stay open in 20 years on that side? 10 years, 5 years, 3 years?
Okay, this isn't gonna come across very nice, but
Go for it.
Press isn't here.
It's getting late.
Yeah, he wants a copy of the tape.
Oh,
I don't hear all the people that are talking and want something to happen downtown. I don't see them opening their wallet, but yet they're asking that the taxpayers of Painesville put up $1.2 million to fund this project for another company that is not from here. And I know that people from here brought him here, which is great, but they're not opening their wallet to invest into this project.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Well, if they are, they're an investor, they're gonna get something in return. As us putting $1.2 million in, our taxpayers aren't gonna get that investment in return.
They'll get it back after you get your taxes back in 15, 20 years. 10 years, going down the line, depending on how more people come in. I know what you're saying,
But if it's on a TIF district, we're not gonna get that.
financing, and that throws a,
but
Wrench
you
in that.
still have another 70 couples coming into town. What I'm saying is, we need to look at it a little bit, because you got nothing. It's not gonna get better in downtown.
Oh, yeah, and that's why you're gonna go, that's why I thought the council approved to go through the process. And figuring out what you want the downtown to look at, like, and then going after the money. But you're gonna have, in 2023, you have the downtown street project and streetscape and the whole redevelopment of that. So this is good timing, because to plan it out takes time.
But if you say no, you're done.
Well, I'm
Well,
not
no.
saying no, I'm just saying
I'm just,
that's a perspective that you have to look at, that I've heard from people is it's okay for me to get taxed for this nursing home. I'm not getting anything out of it. That's something you may hear in the public.
right.
well, that happens, you know, also with, you know,
The school.
industrial, you know, an industrial park too, the city goes through the process.
The schools get hit by that all the time with everybody who's retired, they're paying for it.
Yeah, the only thing that people, and this is not gonna sound good in the paper anyway, but, you know, the only thing that the typical taxpayer sees a benefit from are police, parks, you
Things
know,
you can see.
sidewalks that they can walk on and that kind of thing, so
And
it's
you
just
think-
something that we have to deal with the best.
Another
that we
point
can.
we'll have to be watching real careful too, because the school's gonna run the referendum either this year or next year, that's gonna be $10 to $14 million. No, I will see no benefit of that. Look at that. But what I'm saying is, you know, if we do this, raise the taxes for this, and then the school raises the taxes for that, it could get, really be a mess, so. What I like to do is watch this, see what's going on, play it to the end until we have to make the decision. To me, I think it's my personal opinion is you can have one or the other. You can have TIF or we can give you the land. If it was came down to that. If it came down to that, you know what I mean? You can't have.
You can't have everything, right?
They'd give them the TIF.
Huh?
It's cheaper to give them the TIF than the land.
But you know what I'm saying? It's like,
Well, you know, we have to see, you know, what develops, you know, we've got
Or maybe 50 of both.
Bolton and Mink,
Meet
you
us
know,
halfway
we're
or both.
working on this too.
and you don't know what Cincinnati care if they jump in and want to play this game and they want to build all this stuff up and they jump into this. Well, that's one of our major
That's
companies. That changes a lot of stuff.
And I don't think, I mean, he didn't mention it today, but at the other meeting, didn't he say that their projected cost of these were like $1,200 to $1,500 a month per unit?
Mhm.
Yes.
So that would, I mean, to me, like, is the housing market here in Painesville going to support that? Would be one of my big questions.
I was gonna say,
They're
Washburn
doing
Court.
great. And that's not even with any amenities as this does. $1,200 is cheap.
Yeah, because of all those dramatic.
Now you look, you remember Alicia when I talked to the guy up from Alexandria? They're building one, they're gonna be at $2,400 a room.
Yeah,
Alex isn't that far away for $1,200 a
but
month.
that's not, if you're not in the assisted living or the memory care, like, you're paying out of pocket for that, just like any other apartment, right? This time, your insurance is gonna cover that.
700 Stearns is insane.
Yeah,
You're up to
yeah.
like,
Depending on what, they got the menu also.
yeah, but you're gonna hit $3,000 a
Two
month
meals
there.
a day or three, or
Nuts.
a whirlpool, or.
But anyway,
So we're gonna have to schedule another work session in April or something.
is there any federal monies for stuff like this?
For senior living,
For a downtown
Redevelopment.
redevelopment?
redevelopment, yeah. But it's not
It's not,
next summer, it's not that quick.
Right.
I mean, they get it from, if the state puts some money into it, then you can apply, and then it's usually a year later that you can start, so, yeah, I'll look into it. It goes really fast, because they usually only give a little bit to Greater Minnesota, and they give the majority of it to,
like a gas tax.
Rural development have anything?
Before we jump off that, let's go with one small scenario if you give you a second. And that would be if, the reason I asked that question is I don't want to lose this development. That's why I asked him, you can go someplace else. Because we're probably gonna have to. It'd be cheaper to give them a lot out by the funeral home. And then give them 1.2 million in tip on this one.
And what?
Spending 1.2 million. Because the lots over there are paid for, basically. But anyway, that wasn't the point. The point is, we're still gonna have to figure out what to do with the corner drug. So I'd just like everybody to keep that in the back of their mind. Downtown isn't that bad.
Well,
If you drive downtown, there's a lot of really nice buildings downtown, but the first thing you hit is a corner drug.
but why is the corner drug our problem? Somebody owns that. That's their problem.
Okay, then they'll leave it the way it is, because they don't care.
Well, eventually, it'll take care of itself, I guess.
Yeah, 10 years.
I mean,
Until
it's
something
no different
falls.
than some of the houses around town. People are living on them, they look
No,
terrible, they don't.
remember,
pay
we're
for
talking
it.
downtown here. We're talking storefronts, people trying to make livings in their buildings. What I'm saying is if that building would have been down, farther down the street, it probably wouldn't have been so bad. That corner lot.
Your downtown is still your focal point of your city. It's the center of your city, and not everybody drives, I think what Lynn's trying to say, not everybody goes and drives out in the Claudic Edition or down by the river or whatever, but you go right through downtown, and if your downtown is looking like crap, the first thing people think of is, why would I ever want to live here, move here,
Put a business here.
put a
It's
business
just
here?
that corner building that's so bad.
That's the harsh truth.
That one at least is solid. This one's empty.
and I did look into the TIF redevelopment for this project, and to look at TIF redevelopment, it would take 3 to 6 months to go through the process, but the more important thing is 50% of the structures have to be sub-structured. So the building official would have to go through and estimate that the structures themselves are substandard by 50%. And I ran that by Brad, and he said, even corner drug looks terrible, but it's not 50% substandard. So he said, that is a monumental thing, and they said the hardest thing is having a building owner let you in, because if they let you in to see if it's 50% substandard. Nobody's gonna buy it because they know that it's substandard, so you're not gonna get a very good sale price. And B, if it's above substandard and they're trying to sell it, you're not gonna buy it and tear it down because it's not substandard. So, it's kind of a rock and a hard place, but he said that just by what Brad knows of being in the buildings downtown through Public Works, none of those buildings are gonna become 50% substandard.
So you're not gonna qualify. You're not gonna qualify for that program.
Not for a TIF redevelopment. And the bond, the city would issue that for infrastructure only, and what other communities have done is assess that back to the property, just like we do a street project. But in this case, there would be no assessment back. The city would make the payment.
Oh, I just think it'd be nice to figure out what we can do with
Yeah, I think.
the main eyesore we have that sticks out at you.
Yeah, and that, no matter what we do, that problem is not going away until something is done by somebody.
But I think from what we looked at, you can't hardly do anything with that without it involving the next building also. I think you're
Right.
right.
That's what we do. Eats and treats, I don't know what goes past that one, but.
Yeah, we'd have to explore that, but
That
I
eats and
think
treats,
you're
that used to be
at
where
least
they
get
get
involved.
Yeah.
So Texas.
We decided not to go there.
Yeah,
I can-
they're connected or not.
But it's just a shame that that's corner building.
Okay.
Well, I
A
don't
big
think
tarp
camp
to throw
line's
over.
too much better.
A big tarp to throw over.
They're
Cape that building.
No, actually, it's just the stucco is falling off, but Brad said he walked through it. It's
What building?
structurally sound.
Oh,
Did they fix the
Some old
roads? At one
building.
time, they had like 30 buckets every time it rained.
I believe they did, they got us a couple times through the small cities grant.
yeah, and having a leaky roof doesn't make anything bad, it just makes a leaky roof. Corner drugs leaked for 40 years. It has.
Um,
Yeah.
We're not we're with many other cities trying to. fight
Yeah,
this
we're not
battle,
alone.
To try to figure this out.
No, we were talking to the mayor of New London. You were talking with me, weren't you? One of you were? And then talking to the guy from Alexander, and it's all the same game. Everybody's like,
Yeah, Litchfield's got 13 empty buildings. on Main
Litchfield's
Street.
old buildings, bricks are falling.
Sock Center's no better. You drive down that place, it's for rent or for sale, up and down the line.
Atwater, Grove City, Atwater had a little hardware store with a coffee shop and everything combined. I guess they're all put down too. It's tough. You can build a brand new building and ask somebody to go into it with a business and they probably can't make it.
Can't afford
Fire
to
fuel.
brand new building.
All right, let's move on here, and strategic plan, 2015 leadership retreat.
We went through.
Touched on that a little bit earlier.
We talked about staff meeting, the redevelopment, economic development, housing needs. Bill's gonna start talking with his committee on a liquor store lease. That'll be coming up in 2 years. Comes up a lot faster than he thinks, so he's gonna start working with his liquor board.
Shopko building's open.
Maybe we'll liquor store bill.
And the owners of the building have called me, we're playing phone tag twice today. So we're playing photo with them.
Who owns it? Some holding company?
It's a leased realtor company, yeah. And so they called twice, and I called them back, and then Belinda called them back. So we'll get them sooner or later.
Realty income.
So when we do that, to redo that intersection there, that will be assessed onto that property?
And I want to talk to them about that too, and their water is due to be shut off.
Oh,
And we don't want to do that for multiple reasons, but they have filed bankruptcy, so we have run it by our attorney, and he says at this point, we cannot shut that water off, so that's a good.
I think in that reorganization plan, they're doing their liquidation, but I think I haven't studied it that close, but I'm guessing